Welcome to this segment of a demonstration to talk about vehicle lifts. This particular above ground twin post lift is a 10,000 pound rated or 10,000 pound capacity vehicle lift. What I want to do today is show you not just how to operate it, but also some of the features about it so you can more safely use it. Let's continue on. The only three controls or three apparatus we got to worry about is, of course, the button to raise it. Here's the hydraulic lever to release it and lower. But this is the lock or safety release, the lock release, safety release. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to raise it enough to hear at least one of the clicks. In fact, maybe we'll have the camera look down as I lift, and you'll hear the clumps as they go. That was the first one. Now, if I was to lower the vehicle and let it rest at that height, that's the preferred procedure. It's now resting on these safety locks, and the vehicle cannot lower mechanically. It's locked in place. Of course, to raise it higher, all I got to do is push this button. We can go up high now. So I think you've got an idea of what we mean by how to lift it. I'm going to go ahead and release the locks up here on this handle and lower the lift all the way down. The reason I want to lower it all the way down is, let's go ahead and have the camera, let me stop here for a moment. I want you to look at this pin, okay? And I'm going to lower it. You're going to see those pins, all four of them on this lift, actually rise out of the way for one main safety reason. And there they go. When they're raised up out of the way, obviously I can now freely move this and position it under the vehicle. All I got to do is raise it a little bit and say it was under, let's just pretend this was under a vehicle. Once those pins are able to go down, there's some teeth in here, some teeth that ratchet. And it's mechanically going to stay in place. It won't slip, it won't go sideways. Once, again, we're up a little ways, these ratcheting teeth inside here lock in place as well. A wonderful safety feature. Let's continue on. One last little feature to know about these lifts. Of course, we already demonstrated how these pins will lift up and allow these arms to freely move. Of course, when they're up in the air, they lock into place automatically. Just thought I'd point that out. We can actually do this on the rare occasion you'd ever need to. Okay. Now, these adapters. I'm going to show some various adapters. Let's say the particular vehicle I'm lifting, I've got a running board, or I got to have this extended to clear something on the vehicle. I can have an adapter, or there's a taller one, and I'll put this in place. In addition, we can even rotate these and adjust them appropriately. One of the main things is you want to keep this and the opposite side of the vehicle of the same height, so the vehicle isn't crooked. You want to keep it as level as possible. We'll show you lift placement on the vehicle in a few minutes. But right now, all I want to do is talk about these adapters. In fact, it's a nice idea to keep these adapters lubricated. And unless someone's got a better idea, right now, I quite enjoy using just some anti-seize on these threads. And if I do that periodically, then these things seem to stay free and they'll operate much easier. So these adapters, pretty simple, pretty self-explanatory, but I want to show one thing on the rear. Because I want to show this adapter. I don't know if it always gets pointed out very well. So on the rear, sometimes you're lifting a pickup or something, and it's got a frame. And maybe this isn't going to be quite the answer or the solution for the safest way to lift the vehicle. And often, I have to use a tall extension or maybe just this cross piece here. But again, this will go in there. Maybe I'll swing this out a little bit. But of course, the vehicle's frame will sit on here like that. So, these are the adapters and other attachments to, again, give you options to lift a variety of vehicles. Okay, now we're under a vehicle. This happens to be a full-size pickup with a frame. Let's talk about some lifting points. First of all, speaking of jacks, and we did in an earlier video, there's no problems getting your floor jack and lifting here on the differential center housing. That is perfectly fine. It's one of the thickest pieces of metals on the vehicle. If you had to lift on an axle tube, that's just fine as well. So I just wanted to mention that. I'm going to set this aside now. Let's say the same with jack stands. If for some reason I jacked up the vehicle on the floor with a floor jack and I wanted to support it, no problem supporting on the axle tube, the housing, the axle differential housing. Not a problem. I could even put it here if that was my only option. You get underneath the vehicles sometimes and you think you're limited, okay? Just want to give you a few options. You know what? I wouldn't even be opposed if you had to and the tire wasn't in the way. On this one, the wheel's in the way. You could support it on the leaf springs. Let's go ahead and shine a little light on that. That's probably a little dark. You could show it on the leaf springs. I mean, they're supporting the weight of the vehicle. What's wrong with putting a floor jack or a jack stand on there? Okay. Now, set that aside. Let's continue under the vehicle. I want to show you where I decided to lift. Remember earlier we talked about these adapters, and I chose to use this adapter, and look how I've got it kind of crossways on the leaf spring here on the eye, or not the shackle end, but the mounting end, where the eye of the leaf spring. I could, okay, again based on the vehicle, I wouldn't want to lift here on this angled frame area. That's kind of a dangerous deal. It would be best to either go here where it's level, but the point I want to make here is I could go here level, but if I can spread out, okay, if I can spread out my arms on the vehicle lift, go ahead and shine or view here on the lift, the longer, or I should say the wider I've got my support back over here, okay, the wider I've got my support, the more stable the vehicle is going to be. Okay, I'm going to continue moving up front here. On the front end, obviously this is a nice, beautiful place to lift a vehicle. I could get a floor jack if I had to and lift here and then put my jack stand here if that was my options. If I also wanted to even get a floor jack, find as level a place as possible, lift, and then let's back up. And again, I could put my jack stand here. Now in this case, of course, we're looking at the vehicle lift where I've got it placed on the frame. One detail. I want to keep this lift point as far forward as possible. It's starting to curve up here, isn't it? I want to keep this lift point, again, far as forward as possible because of gravity. If I was to support this vehicle, the further I go back, it gets dangerous. Go ahead and get the camera now, maybe even get way down. I want to just point out the weight of the vehicle, if you think about it, is from the transmission. Here's the engine up here. All the weight of a pickup is this way forward. And so I want to try to lift back over here to this frame as far as forward as possible, because otherwise I stand the chance or the risk of pitching the vehicle forward and off the vehicle, and that'd make for a bad day. That'd be a horrible day. Okay, so please keep that in mind. Keep these as far forward as possible. Keep the stance, okay, of these two arms, this one, that one. Keep them as wide as you possibly can, and you'll have a much safer experience. I want to close with a safety stand for when a vehicle is lifted in the air. You can go ahead and go back there. At times, it really makes good sense to get some kind of a support device. If you're worried or concerned at all, you'll be doing a lot of jerking and lifting underneath the vehicle. Let's get a jack stand, kind of that's designed to support one end of the vehicle. I'm going to support the rear end because I got the front end so well supported. Sometimes it makes sense to do this jack stand on the front of the vehicle if I'm back on the rear end, lifting or jerking and pulling things around hard. So let's keep jack stands and of course vehicle lift safety in mind at all times, because this truck weighs approximately 7,000 pounds. And we're not going to stand a chance if it decides to slide off if we haven't done our lifting correctly. If we do it correctly, then life will be good. Okay. These are the controls. They're identical to what's on the red side post or the above ground lift. This is we'll show this lift here in a moment. This one here is in the ground. We like this one quite well. Controls are the same. I'm going to go ahead and raise the vehicle here, obviously. We lower it here. But here's the latch, or the safety latch release. Okay, we couldn't hear it. Let me just go a little bit higher. Okay, let's do this. Go ahead and look at the vehicle, because I want to let you see it and then hear the safety latch lock in place. Okay, and then I can lower the vehicle gently until it rests. We're now ready to go underneath the vehicle. Okay. Let's start with the front. Here's a vehicle that has not got a frame like a pickup. This is the most common situation you're probably going to see, and it is a front-wheel drive vehicle. Thank you. I could jack anywhere along this subframe. I could put jack stands anywhere across this subframe. Okay? I'm going to turn direction and come in from this angle back here. Because this undercovering, it covers, but this vehicle here happens to have subframe that goes clear across. If you got a subframe that goes across, by all means lift there and put your jack stands on the side areas of the subframe. Some folks call us the cradle. Okay. Anyway, so we got those jacking points. Okay. I'm going to keep moving around. Obviously, I would put a jack stand. I could lift here, whatever my heart's desire. Those are safe. These are safe places to support or, again, jack. All righty? Let's look at where I used the floor, or I should say the floor hoist, or the vehicle lift. Can you see this seam here? Now, again, I've placed this about as far forward as I can. And again, it's all about weight distribution, because this vehicle, front-wheel drive, the transmission and the engine are all forward of this. The only thing behind this point is passenger compartment and gas tank, fuel tank, which weigh less than an engine and trans for the most part, unless you got a bunch of football players in there. Anyway, I could lift here. That's an option. Look at this area. I could lift here as well. I could have easily put this floor hoist on this little unibody area, no problem. I could jack here with a floor jack if I wanted to. You're not going to hurt that at all. I could put a jack stand here. Again, I could put the vehicle lift here. All sorts of options right here. This is nice. Let's keep going back. We're almost done. Now, in fact, come around to the back, because this is the direction you'll likely see. Not as many options on the back of this vehicle to lift. This is the only place I think I would put a floor jack to lift both wheels up in the air. Safety stands, I wouldn't even think of putting something on an angled control arm or suspension piece. Mainly the jack stand's going to slip. Second of all, this would probably bend, and now I've just messed up my rear toe pretty bad. So not as many options, but I can lift here the floor jack, but here's where I'd put my safety stands. And they're going to go right where I've got the vehicle lift. Again, the seam, and you know what? If you felt like you needed to lift this vehicle with this lift, there's nothing wrong with lifting here. That'd be fine. That would be fine. But that's really our options for jack stands and floor lifts. on a front-wheel drive car. This is quite typical. There's usually something in the back I can get to. If the floor jack can't quite reach because of a muffler, just get a block of wood. I know we don't like to use blocks of wood, but sometimes we have to. But I think that will conclude. That'll conclude our segment on vehicle lifts and how to use them, hopefully, in a safe manner.